All right, everybody, Samori Benjamin here at Citi Field with longtime Major League pitcher who I'm excited to be able to talk to, Gubicza. Mr. Gubicza, as I was telling you, I grew up, watching you, your era of baseball, so it's really exciting to be able to meet you and talk to you. You know what? So I saw right now, folks, Gubicza is a broadcaster for the LA Angels of Anaheim, have been for a while, I know.
Yeah.
And I know you ended your career there at the end, but you played most of your career with the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah.
But I know that you're from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So I saw you were a big sports fan coming up. I mean, so like, what do you remember about your childhood coming up in Philadelphia?
Well, it was good. By the way, a pleasure to be on here with you. I mean, I as a Philly fan, we were diehard every sports team. We started with the Phillies, the Eagles, the Flyers, the Sixers, and playing stickball at the schoolyard, or playing basketball at that same schoolyard, or playing hockey, street hockey in that same schoolyard. We always try to be our favorite one. Like basketball, it was Dr. J.
Yes.
One thing everyone thought for as a Philly, I'd always try. Everyone think you'd be Mike Schmidt or Greg Luzinski. But I love Bake McBride for whatever reason. I don't know why. And it was funny when I ran into him one time. I said, "Hey, you were my favorite Philly." He goes, "Why?" Because I batted right-handed, he batted left-handed. But I just thought that little short bat and how quick he was through it, and he had that good little flair to him too.
Right.
So I lived and died all those teams, and I honestly thought in my lifetime I never thought the Eagles would ever win a Super Bowl. So they win two of them now over the last since 17, and won last year against the Chiefs. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, man, I know Mac Trout is also a Eagles fan and all that. I'm a Giant fan, but it's funny because
we love you because of Barkley.
Yeah. You know what? And I wanted to say that I was happy that Saquon Barkley won, and I wanted him to do what he did because the Giants are incompetent. But whole other issue. But I was very happy for Saquon. It pains me to say that as a Giant fan for the Eagles, but as I said, the Giants are incompetent. But so as a kid, so I know, probably a teenager, Julius Erving, got moved to the Sixers, 76, 77. So that was probably your wheelhouse coming up, and they won the championship. Do you remember much about that?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I remember Moses Malone said they were going to go faux, and they went 4-5-4 to win the championship. But they had to battle some. It was always a battle with the Celtics to get there, or the Knicks, and then the Lakers there too. They finally put it all. I still remember, when they didn't win the championship and they played the Portland Trailblazers.
77, yeah.
Oh, I was out of my mind on that one. They had some of the most unbelievable players. In that team too, and George McGinnis, Darryl Dawkins, Caldwell Jones, along with Dr. Mo Cheeks is one of my favorite players of all time. I got to meet him a few years ago. We were staying at the same hotel in Houston. And I'm out there. I said, Mo Cheeks, what's going on? He goes, how do you know me? I said, I'm a Sixer fan, because he knew me from doing some baseball stuff and everything like that. But always was like a gigantic sports fan. So I live and breathe all the sports. Obviously, being away from Philly as long as I have been, I still go pretty strong for them in all sports.
Yes, you're right. When I said that, I was thinking about the first year Dr. J was there when Portland beat them in the finals. And then I know 82 they got swept by the Lakers, right? And then 83 they beat the Lakers. In 1980 the Phillies won the World Series. So I'm sure. What do you remember about that?
It was one of the coolest things. So it's such a crazy story. I never went to a baseball game with my dad ever. Mm-hmm. So here I am again. I got tickets from Ruben Amaro Sr., who was the first base coach, because Ruben Amaro Jr., who ended up being the Phillies general manager, does TV for him. We were teammates at high school, at William Penn Charter High School in Philly. So he goes to get 2 tickets. We were literally right behind the dugout where that ball pops out of Bob Boone's glove into Pete Rose's glove. And then we're there for, we're sitting there, because my dad, was around for a long time and never saw the Phillies win a World Series. Right. So that's the first World Series game that we're together, and we embrace. I said, Dad, I'm going to run on the field. He goes, wow. Son, there's a lot of mounted police officers and German shepherds down there. I said, I don't think it would be a good idea for you to do that. And then literally 6 months later, because they beat the Royals, 6 months later, I'm drafted by the Royals. So here I am, I'm living with George Brett a few years after. I'm saying I'm always a big Mike Schmidt fan. And he goes, who do you like better, Mike Schmidt or George Brett? I go, I like George Brett better.
That's a beautiful story. So many connections right there, and that's why we love sports. And so what did it feel like to be drafted? 6 months later, and by the Royals, who you had, were just rooting against a few months earlier in the World Series.
And it was, because it was weird because everyone knows kind of where they're going with draft now in baseball, but I had no idea. I remember the Braves were interested. I thought for sure the Phillies were going to draft me. I heard a few other teams in there, but I didn't even hear the Royals. I had no idea. So Yeah, it was crazy because I'm up playing stickball. My dad drives up in the station wagon. Always had the same noise, so I knew where he was coming. I knew I had to run somewhere or be ready to go. And he goes, "Son, come over here. Guess what? You got drafted." I go, "By who?" And he goes, "Kansas City." I go, "Kansas City? We were just rooting against them." But lo and behold, he goes, "Hey, they're in the playoffs every year. That's a good organization." At that point, John Shearholtz was coming up as a general manager. He's in the Hall of Fame right now. I mean, they were an organization at that point were winning every year. Mm-hmm. So, as much as you want to be a rival because they played each other in World Series, I knew I was going to a great organization.
Yeah, and so you made your debut in the major leagues, what, 1984?
In 1984.
1984, and so that year I know the Royals being the LCS and lost to the Tigers, who ended up winning the World Series that year. I mean, so what do you remember about your major league debut?
I still remember because it was against Cleveland. Bert Blyleven was on the other side, and I only gave up 1 run in 6 innings. And Bert Blyleven didn't give up any.
Yeah.
And every time I saw him for years, even to this day, I go, "I used to like you until that day." So I remember going against him. My first career strikeout was against Pat Tabler, who ended up being my teammate in Kansas City. And I remember the first batter I faced was Brett Butler, and I was nervous as all can be. I think I walked him on 4 pitches, didn't even throw a strike in there, and he ended up stealing the bag, goes over to third base on the ground out, scores on the ground out. So that was the only run I gave up. But after I get that first batter, I learned to breathe. And that's why I always tell the young guys when I see them, breathing is the most important thing, because everyone thinks you're breathing anyhow. But if you're really tense out there, all your muscles kind of like contract and you're not comfortable. So I learned that right away at the big leagues.
Mm-hmm. Who might have been somebody who was an early mentor to you at that time?
Well, there was 2 guys in particular I always grew up and idolized. One would be Tom Seaver, who I ended up having many conversations about how to pitch. And one real quick thing with him, because I was a drop and drive guy like him, so I used to bang my knee every time. So I saw him one day. I went up to Mr. Seaver, "Can you give me some advice on the first pitch I throw in a game in spring training? My knees already killed me." And he goes, "Hey, did you ever play basketball before?" I go, "Well, yeah. Growing up, what I did, playing all the time." He goes, "Do you ever see those little white knee pads that they wear?" I go, "Yeah." I said, "I put that on my knee, put it underneath my uniform, and my knee never bothered me."
Wow.
And that day I did that, my knee never bothered me the rest of my career.
Wow.
So it was that cool little advice I did. Same thing with Jim Palmer. I talked to him about stuff. I had a real long, lucky conversation with the late Don Drysdale, too. And he saw one of my games that I pitched in. And my dad and my brothers were all watching a local tavern in Philly. And Drysdale had said on the broadcast, "I would love 5 minutes with this guy." So I called my dad after every game. I go, "Dad, it didn't go." He goes, "Call Mr. Drysdale tomorrow. If you don't ever call me back." Wow. Hangs up on me. So I go up to the game the next day, and I call up the press box. I go, "Can I speak to Mr. Drysdale?" And he goes, "Oh, this is me. I'll be right down." Boom. So I went into our manager's office. Dick Hauser let me go in there. We talked about an hour and a half about how to pitch, and it was huge for my development as a player.
That's really cool. That's amazing. A lot of the stories that the fans never know about, but are key to the success of young players and all that. And next year, '85, you won the World Series with the Royals. And so how about that? Your second year, and you were part of a World Series champion.
And that's the thing. It was crazy. When you go playoffs the first year, so I'm thinking, all right, we're going to the playoffs. By the way, that Tiger team, I still to this day think was the best team I've ever seen.
Okay.
And they were so deep. Sparky Anderson, manager. Willie Hernandez was MVP, a closer. And they had Jack Mars. They had all the, Trammell and. Parrish and Whitaker, who I think is a Hall of Famer too. Don't get me started on that. I'll battle for that one forever because he's a Hall of Famer. But the next year, here we are, starting off the second half. We were 7.5 games out of first place. We go to Yankee Stadium. We had a 5-game series because the first time in New York, we had some rainouts. We got swept all 5 games. So we're already thinking, well, it's not going to turn out real good for us. But we played the Angels that year, 8 games in September. And generally, the history of the Royals was always in the second half you play well. So we won 7 of the 8 games against the Angels that year. So that's a 6-game swing. We won that division by 1 game. So if we hadn't played that well against, and they were loaded with future Hall of Famers all up and down their lineup, but we had some really good young pitching with Sabering, myself, Danny Jackson, and we had a couple veterans who didn't have a lot of experience, Bud Black and Charlie Leemrand. But we pitched well, we caught everything. We had George Brett and Frank White were really our key guys.
Yeah. And you mentioned Bud Black, and he went on to, of course, be a manager, a long time now. What's it like to just, when you look back and you see some of your teammates and see some of the things that they would go on to do, like Bud Black?
No, I mean, he was one of my mentors too. I remember he would always, I remember one game he had a tough game against the Tigers in Detroit, and I'm sitting there talking to him. He goes, "Man, how you feeling?" He goes, There's nothing I can do about it now. I got to be ready for my next start. So that's one thing I learned right away from him is you can't let one start or even as a hitter one at bat affect the rest of you with your performance, because otherwise it'll keep mounting and you'll end up keeping struggling. So I learned a lot from him. I used to call him Mr. Freeze because he was so cool.
Yeah.
And that's the way he was even as a manager too. But there was sometimes he would get a little bit angry. But I mean, he was such. I could, like I said, I would never want to play poker with him because he could have a pocket aces or he have a 2 and a 4, and I still wouldn't know what he had.
Yeah, nice. And 2 other pitchers who you were part of that rotation with during your career. I know David Cone came later, but Brett Saberhagen, who you mentioned, and David Cone. What was it like being able to be teammates with them?
Oh, it was great because Coney and I, David, we were roommates too in the minor leagues, and I still can never forget the pain we both had when he got traded, because he was a Kansas City kid.
Yeah.
Got traded over to Mets, and obviously the thing turned out really well for him because he just made the team. He probably would have been up there when we all got up there too, but he hurt his knee on a play at the plate in a spring training game. He tore his ACL, so it took him. I sent him back a year. But being around him, and I think we all kind of competed with each other, but in a good way. We, like, if Saves had a great game, I wanted to be better. And if I had a great game, Coney wanted to be better. And the same thing when Danny Jackson part of that too. We were all competitive and trying to be better than the rest of us on the team, but in a way where we were pulling for that. When they're out there on the mound, I'm pulling for them just like I was on the mound with them. So the competition, friendly competition amongst us was very, very important because we were all the same age. I mean, Coney and I were drafted the same year in '81. I was the second round, he was the third rounder, and then Saves was the very next year. Danny Jackson was one of those winter drafts that year too in between. So we have 4 arms and we're going to be stable points in that rotation forever. Eventually all of them went away except for me.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, David Cone, he went away and did a lot of things. And I even remember Danny Jackson pitching in the World Series with Philadelphia in '93. But okay, so now you made 2 All-Star teams in '88 and '89. So your first All-Star team in '88. What did it feel like to be named to the All-Star team?
It was such an honor too, and usually I was a guy that really struggled to start the season. I mean, my April numbers probably kept me away from being a lot better pitcher as far as all-time numbers. But I got off the decent start, especially in '88. Obviously, I ended up being a 20-game winner that year, but just being named to the All-Star game, I remember going into the clubhouse and seeing Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Lou Brock, Bob Gibson. And these are all these guys that either had their baseball cards or their Slurpee cups. So I was like, oh my God, I couldn't breathe. I remember going in the outfield and like looking around, I'm like, I can't believe I'm here. I couldn't believe I was actually made an All-Star team. And I know everyone has that same feeling. I would hope they do, but it was a thrill of a lifetime to be there. And I had fun, but I didn't enjoy it because I was so nervous and crazy. So the next year when I made it was in Anaheim. That was when Bo Jackson was on the team. So me and Bo were going out there, and that time I really enjoyed it and kind of embraced all the atmosphere around it.
Yeah, and so Bo led the game off with a home run to center field, right?
Yeah.
So what do you remember just about that? 'Cause that's like one of the most All-Star iconic moments.
Yeah, I remember because I'm in the bullpen there at Angel Stadium, which is different now. The bullpen's we're down in right field. I'm sitting right next to Nolan Ryan because Dave Stewart started that game, and then Nolan was coming in next, and I followed him up. I remember talking to Nolan. I go, "This is a good matchup for Bo. Rick Russell's a sinker ball." I said, "You can't throw a ball low enough for Bo." And that was at the height of all the Bo nose stuff going on. Because I remember all those Bo nose signs and everything else. So when he hit that ball, you could hear it, and I couldn't quite see how far it was going, but in our direction, I'm like, I just hear the oohs and the ahs, and everyone's like, oh my God, it went so far. And I look back, and I remember Vince Scully, Bo Jackson says hello. And then President Reagan was right there with him. He's like, oh man, they're going nuts. And I tell you, the things he was doing is to see, like most times in an All-Star game, everyone's a star. But everyone was out of their mind seeing Bo. Like they all wanted to see Bo and talk to Bo. But Bo was, for me, and George, Brad, and all those guys who had these All-Star games, we were like, he's just one of us. But those guys were like, wow. I remember we were flying back, and I'm sure if you ever saw that, 30 for 30 there going back, the pilots are getting out of the cockpit, coming back, getting his autograph, and I'm not a great flyer. I'm nervous. I'm like, sir, who's flying this plane? I said, Bo will be there when we land. Go back up in that cockpit and fly this plane. But I mean, it was amazing. Then we walked, when we landed here in New York, because we played the Yankees, we were walking through the airport. I felt like I was hanging out with Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones. People were just, this is before social media too. I couldn't imagine how crazy it would have been. They were just swarming him. And I'm like, man. And I would always go to Bo. He goes, yeah, every day. That's why he couldn't really go out a whole lot, when he was on the road, or even barely getting in from the hotel boom on the team bus. But it was amazing to watch what he did, and being at that football game against the Bengals when he got hurt.
Oh,
too.
You were there? You were there?
I was there
Wow.
every game, and he had sideline passes. So I was right there.
Oh, wow.
And all the guys on the team, from Bob Golick and all these other guys who were on that team, and they were all going, man, this guy, is he this crazy good in baseball? I said, yeah. Because they were to say he was the fastest guy, but if he wanted to run you over, he would.
Yeah.
But I remember after being hurt, and I saw it on his face, I go, how you feeling? You're not feeling real good, are you? So he goes, no, can you get my boys? So I went up to the stands and brought his boys down there and stuff like that, and I could see it in his face. I had no idea it was going to be that significant, the injury, because usually you think of Bo, he was invincible. But to see that happen, and eventually after that, his career with us was done. But I love when he came back with the White Sox and what he did. He hit that home run. He said he hit a home run for his mom, and he did, right? First at bat back. And I even faced him. I remember he got an infield hit off me, and I'm looking going, how do you beat that out, man, with that hit? Because I'm still fast enough to beat anything you can do.
You're wild. No, I mean, I remember watching that game against the Bengals on TV. Wait, so he gave you sideline passes for like all of his games?
All the games,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And you said that after the All-Star game, you all came back to face the Yankees, right?
Yeah.
You know what? And when I think about it, I think that might have been the series when Bo had the 3 home run game, and then Dion had the inside the park home run.
Yeah, that was unreal.
Yeah,
that happened
next year.
That happened in.
This is '89.
So that was so it was in '90 when he did that.
'90. Okay.
90, 91, one of those 2 years.
Yeah, okay.
I know that. But that was crazy when he did that. I'm thinking, I mean, because we were just in Boston too. And he had a tough game, and then I think he might have punched out a bunch of times against Clemens, and we go to his 3 home runs, and he dies for that ball against Dion. I'm like, I'm witnessing one of the most incredible games ever, because 2 of the greatest athletes that ever played the game of baseball. I mean, obviously got to see that now with Shohei Ohtani when he was here, but there was nothing, to me, I mean, I got to know Brian Jordan, who was phenomenal too, but I don't think anybody was quite like Bo.
Yeah. No, you're right. No, I saw Brian Jordan actually at the All-Star weekend in Atlanta. He still looks like he could play safety now. Yeah. So he's definitely kept himself in shape. So that early '90s, late '80s Royals team, and the one guy who I liked a lot was Danny Tartabull.
Yeah.
Ended up coming to the Yankees, and I grew up a Yankee fan. I mean, but what do you remember just about where you guys were at talent level of the late '80s, early '90s Royals teams, and manager Hal McRae, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was like one of my favorite. I'm sure if you're a Yankee fan, you know those takeouts of Willie Randolph at second base, and then George Brett fighting Craig Nettles at third base in a playoff game. But when we got to that one point after winning the World Series, getting in the early '90s, that '91 team really, because we got Kirk Gibson, he was going to DH. Bo was going to be outfield. Tartabull be in the other outfield spot. Brian McRae was going to be in center. That team had a chance of being really, really good. Bo's hurt, got football, and then he's done. Then you had to force to play Kirk Gibson out in the outfield. And, he was still battling, trying to stay healthy enough. So we went, and myself and Saberhagen, we all ended up getting hurt, and it went, kind of went down from that point. Our owner passes away shortly thereafter. Ewing Kaufman, and things kind of got disarray. But we always had a ton of talent. I mean, Danny Tartabull, for me, we got him from Seattle from a good friend of mine, Scott Bankhead, and we traded a pitcher. It was one of the most talented people I've ever been around.